Oh, it's
Hello.
happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
You too. Yeah, I was going to wear my red sweater, but I realized I wore it to the meeting last night and thought that would look like I only had one sweater, which would be fine, but
Nobody would have even noticed.
probably not. Yeah.
All right, so we are now custom live streaming, and so we can actually call the meeting to order officially.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 5:35 p.m. and begin the agenda with the approval of meetings minutes. Sorry, I'm very asleep. From the January 10th committee meeting.
I will make a motion to accept the minutes from the, wait, was I at the January 10th meeting?
Everyone was at the January 10th meeting.
Yes, then I will make a motion to accept the minutes from the January 10th meeting.
All right. We
did
don't
not
need
need a
seconds.
second in committee, so
Excellent.
maybe
So everyone in favor?
I see Amy and Jenny both raised their hands, but Donna, without the camera, could you either, there we go. Perfect.
Okay. And then we would move to public comment. I have received none. Have you, Jen?
No, we did not receive any requests for public comment at tonight's meeting, so none.
Okay. Maybe we'll get to meetings with lots of public conversation. That would be cool. All right, so we are going to talk about the CABE Communications webinar, which was really useful. I don't know that you two need to attend it, given that I think Jen and I gleaned the stuff that seemed most useful to us. Do you want to give a talk about what you found most exciting about it, Jen?
Yeah, so and if you do want to attend it, I know CABE webinars are available on demand. I thought it was one of the better ones that I've gone to, maybe because it gave some really practical ideas around something that I think we've been struggling with.
Yeah.
I found the presenter was the essentially communications director from the Boston Public Schools. So obviously a much larger district where you can afford an entire full-time communications director. But I think what he did was approach a very large school district in a way that wanted to make it a smaller school district. So I think some of the ideas he had are very applicable to us. I think one of the things that I took home sort of right away was that his recommendations for the board align very much to the work that the board can do. So, for example, one of his recommendations was to update our communications policies because, you know, writing and supporting policy of the board is the work of the board. And he said, you probably haven't looked at them in a while. And I know our communications policies, they are scattered throughout the entire policy manual. But we have a lot of them at the very sort of front end around communications with the public and sort of parents' role in communications. And, you know, they were updated maybe 6 years ago, but the shift that we've seen, like, I think much like we sort of said, okay, we're going to focus on student discipline this year, that might be a nice focus for the board if we ever get out of some of the student ones that we seem to keep getting ourselves mired into. But I thought that was a great suggestion. I think Donna will appreciate this. He said that if you want good communications, you have to allocate resources to good communications. So I think, you know, that is something that we, you know, we talked a little bit about last night, and I will continue to pursue options through ACEs, but even some strategies that we might be able to bring back. He did make some recommendations around the New England School Public Relations Association, and I have a feeling that that organization, which superintendents can be part of, might give some strategies and tools for making those communications. And then the last was, again, because your responsibility, policy, budget, and superintendent is to evaluate the superintendent's communication strategies and process, and then to provide that feedback for improvements. So I
And
think
professional
in some ways,
development too.
yes. And so I think in some ways the board has kind of already figured out what you can and can't do with respect to communications. But then his sort of last suggestion, which is, I think, the interesting piece, is that the board can open up opportunities for family and staff and community engagement with the board in a way that maybe isn't necessarily just like public comment. And so I think that's the thing that we're all struggling with, is that in public comment in the meetings, we don't have dialogue, but that need for conversation seems to exist. So he started to give some ideas on that. I thought, again, he was very clear about how to conduct civil Board of Education meetings. And I thought the bullet points he gave our chair, Mr. Davis, does exactly what he said to do. The time limits, the setting the expectations. So I did not feel that there was anything he really said to us there that could, that we would have to change. I think one of the things that I liked, and again, I'm going to have to kind of look for it. And we have this, but we've talked about it before, but we don't have it as like a resource. He talked about the flow chart for communications, and they actually put a CABE model up. We have an organizational chart, but I don't think we've actually been explicit that that organizational chart is also the communications chart. So when people come to you with complaints about something, I'm thinking like the fencing that is up around the stadium field. That should not be an email to the Board of Education, right? There is a chain of communications that you can go through to actually get that fixed, as opposed to, so, and we don't have that to like hand to people to say, oh, this is who you should call. So
who do I call would be a great section on the website.
Yep. If we ever get that website updated, but yes. But anyway, so I thought that was a helpful one. But what he really started to talk to that I started to kind of hone in on are the ways in which we can engage with stakeholders. And so he talked a little bit about the idea of community forums, which I know has come up before, where we could actually have conversations and a back and forth. What his approach, what he recommended was that it be topic oriented, so that it's not a big open free for all, but that the board could pick specific topics that the community forum would be directed at. Organizationally, they weren't like auditorium style. It sounded like they sort of put people into a library and media center where a board member and a school administrator would sit at a table with just a handful of community members, and you'd have multiple tables going on sort of all at one time. So that way it didn't feel like kind of that formal auditorium like panelist discussion, but you had sort of that intimate kind of back and forth plan. He said that these had guiding questions. So there were very specific, so that way the experience at the tables could be somewhat similar. So they had guiding questions, they had a note taker, and some were very specific to listening sessions. So one of the things that I think potentially this committee could do is identify what the topics of these facilitated sessions could kind of help craft the note taker and the guiding questions that we would want to put out to the attendees, and then start to open up some of that back and forth engagement and dialogue with the community. So I thought that was a set of really good practical ideas. He did talk about coffee hours. And I know all of the principals run the coffee hours. They're not tremendously well attended, but again, that's not a reason not to do them, because then you can say, well, we had coffee hours, nobody came. But he would recommend, again, that would be something where you had a superintendent and a board member sort of very informally hosting those coffee hours. And he, he really talked about the role of the board member as an ambassador, making sure that you're constantly putting out to the community the mission, the vision, the goals, the strategic plan, the values statements, the portrait of the graduate, like all of these things that are foundational to the district, to just every chance you have to kind of remind people of that's why and what we do for schools.
And he mentioned maybe having a dashboard that showed progress toward the strategic plan. So if we get our plan together, then we can be showing progress.
Yeah, so I think that's, and Mr. Davis and I have talked about that. It's one of the things that's kind of absent that other districts have, which is an actual strategic plan. We certainly have one now around our efforts towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. But again, that's sort of a subset of what we have to consider as a much bigger strategic plan. Now we're building some goals and action steps around our accountability reports and student academic achievement. So I think, we have pieces that fall under our 3 goals, right? The first one is kind of our academic goal. The second is our budgetary goal. The third one is our climate and culture goals. So I think we have at least 2 of those. So we have the workings of a strategic plan. We just need to kind of assemble it. He talked about social media, which was interesting. He was so he said, absolutely, we need to have a presence on social media. He did not dispute that. He was really explicit that we should not ever, ever, ever engage in the comments and the back and forth that occurs on social media. Because we did ask, I think I asked the question of like, how do you respond to it? So when it goes so quickly like wildfire, and he's like, you just can't, you just don't. He's
Amy?
Yeah, so the night that I was being appointed for the Board of Ed at the Board of Selectmen meeting, a woman who I'd never seen before, ever, got up and was questioning my ability to be a member of the board because I had posted on Facebook like a vote yes. I had actually reposted Anna Mann's, and it just said vote yes. It was the 3rd time around.
Yep.
And there was a comment made about, well, she'll know better moving forward. Like, am I not allowed to do that? Like, I'm not 100% sure. So I haven't done anything. I haven't commented on anything. I haven't posted anything because I'm not 100% sure what I can and cannot do.
So, so you absolutely, and I remember this a little bit from our board members' roles and responsibilities. You can absolutely advocate proactively and in favor of any of the efforts of the district. When it's on your own personal social media site, again, that's fine. You're an elected official with opinions and you are allowed to do that. I think what he was cautioning us against were twofold. One is he actually recommended leaving the comment ability on district or school websites or social medias, which I am almost certain we always turn off because we don't want to necessarily have people throwing questions out there that we're not going to necessarily respond to in a public social media platform. So I'm going to have to check on that, and I want to think about that one a little bit. So he was cautioning against sort of, if you have the comments on, engaging in that dialogue back and forth through the specific district or school board social media site. The other thing I think he was cautioning about is like when you have posts on the Moms of BOA page and not involving in those commentary, because at that point you're inserting yourself as a board member, and it could be that perception that you're representing the board. So your own social media is totally fine. It's the commenting within other places that I think he was cautioning us against. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've abstained from all social media because I wasn't 100% sure and I didn't want to get myself into trouble.
Yeah. And he did sort of say one of the, he said, you know, one of the ways to respond to incorrect information on social media is to use your own social media platform to get out sort of fact versus fiction ideas. But he, in that case, that's clearly where you're relying on somebody who can do that as a 24/7 job, because that's
Right.
where you have a.
I find it to be really difficult because people tend to look for arguments. And during COVID, somebody had posted something about the West Haven school system and how they were closed or something. And I was like, no, we're not closed, we're open. And she commented something else. So I sent her a private message and I just said, West Haven is open. Bailey Middle School is closed for one day on Friday because of staff shortages. And I was like, you know, for obvious reasons, I don't want to, you know, comment on the website. And she ripped me like a new one and couldn't understand why I would be willing to share information with her, but not publicly.
Everybody else.
I was not looking for an argument. I was just trying to correct misinformation because they said at one point the whole West Haven district was closed. And I was like, nope, I'm going to work. It's only one school that closed one day because of staff shortages. And then I wasn't looking for an argument. So I just kind of shut that down real quick. So again, it's like, you don't know when, but like they said, I guess it's better if you just use your own platform and then you're not in a back and forth. And
yep,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the impression I had was that he was talking about the district and school accounts and saying that we need to keep the comments on so people don't feel that we're this stonewalled, they can't engage thing, but that we should like brace ourselves to not respond, because then you can get into a back and forth, step all over yourself, and the people who don't get responded to then feel bad. So
which is why I think it was
a barometer for how many people are engaging. And he reminded us to think about the audience and give them credit for the ability to discern a really bad argument. Like not everyone who reads it is going to be believing the things that are said.
Correct. And again, that's sort of, again, where I sort of wonder about the wisdom of turning on the comments, because people expect response to the comments. It's why they comment. So, so I don't know. I mean, so that's the part that I struggle with. Will it be just like another public comment session at the board meeting where people will say things and then we never respond, and so they feel equally dissatisfied, like we're never paying attention to the social media account?
We don't have a Board of Ed social media account as of right now.
No, the board does not. We have a handful of district accounts that we try to keep somewhat semi-active. Obviously, Ernie has a great athletics account.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Davis, employee, not board chair, is trying to stay on top of both our Facebook and our Instagram account. We don't really do a lot with our Twitter account from the district level because the parents seem to be on Facebook and the kids are on Insta. So those are our two primary places. And then Mrs. LaPlante does a lot through as sort of like a counseling / high school / student Insta account that really is somewhat more targeted for the kids. I know that I have individual teachers and groups that also run their own social media pages, but in terms of getting a district message out, those are kind of our three areas that we have. And you know, and I think I would like to probably get a little more opinion than just the one guy on what to do with comments on those social media pages, because I
That
think
makes
there's
sense.
probably a mixed set of thoughts out there. And honestly, right now, I don't have staff who could even respond to comments or acknowledge them if we did turn them on. So for right now, I think we'll keep it structured the way it is. And maybe that's a long-term goal. He was really clear that when it comes to crisis communication, that's where the board needs to step back. And if we're ever in the mode of kind of a crisis, the board just needs to just kind of say, rely on the communication from the school and the superintendent. I asked about a communications committee, like what, if he's got a good structure for them, what their purpose should be. And he was interesting. He said that communications committees form when the board is dissatisfied with communications, and the work of a good communications committee will tell them that they need to, they'll know to disband when the work is done. So he felt that it's kind of like a short-term committee. It seemed like once you get everything in place and lined up, then you don't need to have a communications committee anymore. I don't know if you sort of took the same kind of message, Jenny.
I did, and I liked it a
Okay.
lot. I felt as though the message I was getting was, if we have a communications plan, if we know who to talk to when there's a communications that people think needs to go out, and we have the policy to support that, and we fund whatever is needed to do that work, then when there's a problem or a thought someone has that can say, I'm getting a lot of talk about this, can we have some information that goes out about this topic so that people understand what's going on? The board would know who to talk to. You would not be getting swamped with every single question that everyone has about everything. Like, there would be that flow chart you were talking about. We would know who to call. We would know who to talk to and whose job it is to do these things. And then we, as the board, can focus on things that are in the board's purview, like having this community engagement series of forums, right? And
Yeah.
the best practice things that I was taking away from him that struck me is the not to leave information vacuums, which I think is a problem that we have because we don't have staff and we're overwhelmed, and there's this 24/7 news cycle, commentary cycle, and there's not, I don't feel, a real structure of how that gets responded to. And it's all your job, and you're also supposed to be doing every other job in the entire world. I do support trying to hire someone. He was giving this sort of tiered structures of how school districts respond with communications, and like bigger districts will hire professionals, and then moving on down you end up with a superintendent who's relying on the volunteer parent who can give a couple hours a week to try to throw some things together. And I thought, what a nightmare. And that's an awful lot like what we're doing by trying to have board members volunteer to write things to throw together to respond to erroneous assumptions. I would love to have that not happening. I would love to have a good plan. That I have an underlined note here. It's very important to have closed loop systems for problems and how to report back that there's a follow-up. Like if we have a plan and a system so that there's a checklist and that thing always happens and people always get the feedback that a problem has been addressed, even if they don't hear what, I think that would reduce a lot of anxiety about what's happening. Is anyone responding to this? And the communications committee could just fade back into the general board and focus on these forums, and then being able to report back to the full board. These are the concerns of the community. I love the idea of making ourselves obsolete.
I agree, Jenny. I mean, you've already heard me speak last time in our last meeting. This is a lot for one person to do, and it is a full-time job. Now, I don't know if you need somebody full-time forever, but right now, in order to develop a communication strategy, you want a cohesive message, you want consistent, right now it's piecemeal, and that's exactly how it sounds, and because that's what it is. But that is not what you want. You want the messaging. You want to be able to engage the community, and you need someone to put together a strategic plan. And Jen, you're wearing many hats. This is not something you yourself have time to do. And this person would set everything up. They would say, we're going to, communicate. They're going to talk about everything. When you talk about health and safety, and what's going on in technology, what is the Raptor system, all the questions and things that come to the board that people want to know about. Oh, STAR testing. When's STAR testing happening? When you get the results? How do you get the results? Who do you call? If there's a crisis, who do you call? Where does the messaging come from? It comes from the superintendent, not the board. You shouldn't be contacting the board for these miscellaneous questions, but people do that because they don't know what else to do.
Yeah. And I think that's where maybe that flow chart idea, so that way you can redirect them at some point. Hopefully they learn to stop always asking you and to actually call the school first, because right. But I think that flow chart idea sort of helps, because you have to have that as a quick resource. Some of the other ideas that he said, he was like, schools always make the mistake of putting communications out right when you need something from people, like when you need them to vote for the budget, when you need, so he said it's got to be really a year-round cycle. So that way you're always keeping people in the loop on things. I think that, I commend, like I said, Mr. Davis for his monthly newsletters, because I think that has kind of shaken us out of that. We only communicate at budget time, sort of rut we were in. One of the things he recommended, he said op-eds are fine. And he said even op-eds from board members, just as long as it's very clear that it's an opinion piece that, but again, that's part of your role. So he didn't have any qualms about that. He suggested an email list of kind of the influential people in the town that I would have, that I could then very deliberately send communications to. So like when Paul's newsletter goes out to the media, simultaneous to that, having this list of the town movers and shakers who would also receive that. And I think by sort of the influential people, I don't think he's referring to just the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. I think he was really thinking in a very broad sense of who are the people in the community who can help to not just spread the message about the school system, but who you can also, if you can assuage them then and answer their questions ahead of time, they're not going to cause challenges for you necessarily. And I can't even remember who I was talking to after I went to this, because I was all pumped up and kind of excited by everything I'd heard, but I was like, I don't even know who I would put on that list. But that is, again, where the board and the communications committee and the entire board can come up with the list of people who should probably be on the list of influential people that I need to be sending these things to, because I don't necessarily have those roots per se in the community, but as board members, you certainly do. So anyway, that was interesting. He talked about a sort of, like he called it the find the good stories. So it was like, and he said it can't look like a newsletter. It has to just be a 200-word like blurb just about the good stories. And so that got me thinking back to the old Amity in Action, which again, I know Mr. Brow talked about last night, because that's kind of exactly what it was. It was the 8-page glossy that was really kind of the good stories of the year. I think we tried to do that in a multimedia manner when we worked with our videographer and tried to capture those good stories, but not in print, but in video. But I think combination of perhaps not the right person in terms of reliability, but people still just don't seem to see those videos, and they're cute, they're good, like they tell the story so much better than the words can, but somehow rethinking that 200-word idea. So, those are, again, so in, like Donna, to your point, a plan, I mean, those are some of his practical ideas that he would have as part of a plan. But again, I can sort of come up with action steps and what to do and who might do it, but it would really be asking current people to just do more things.
Take on more, right? And
we
that's
don't have
it's a real problem.
people to do some of those.
No, you need someone who has an expertise in this. You don't want somebody who's learning. You want someone who says, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have a plan. We're going to be proactive, not reactive. And we're going to have, when you have crisis management, you're going to have a boilerplate and you're going to say, this is what's going to happen. And you're going to have somebody who sets up the communication timeframe. You alert, you keep people informed. People want to know. You want to close the loop. You want to invite any questions. You want them to know who they can contact when you talk about like the feel good story. People who don't, it was also brought up last night, people don't have time to go through a board document. They don't want to know every little thing that was said. They want the highlights. There are districts who put out like a 1-minute video. Last night, the superintendent will come on. Last night, this is what happened at our board meeting. And it's very purposeful, thought out. And these are the new things we're talking about. We're talking about Schoology and how we're testing it. We're going to have these great new textbooks. Here's what your kids are going to see. Here's what your kids are going to do. It's, and when you talk about, do you want a newsletter? How do you want to receive it? Because not everyone, some people, I don't do social media. I have no interest in social media. I have people contact me about what's happening on social media, and I hear a lot that way. So yes, that is a whole other animal, but that will also be incorporated.
And again, so all the ideas, like, and again, this is sort of kind of loops us right back around to the beginning, right? Because coming up with the strategy to improve communications and a strategic goal to actually have a communications director, whether it's full-time, part-time, volunteer, whatever it is. But those are all things that the board would want to build into the strategic plan, because at that point you can say, okay, in the year 2025, that's going to be the year that we put a communications director into the budget. And so it's kind of, a lot of that goes back to sort of that kind of the vacuum that we somewhat have in needing to have a strategic plan.
How about 2023?
Well, and again, so Donna, I'm just talking about, what a strategic plan, right, is a 5-year sort of long-term goal. And I don't know what else is on that strategic plan. So if the board collectively says next year, that's the most important thing we need to do, again, that's part of the strategic plan conversation. But I don't think that's I don't think that's the type of work that will ever get accomplished at a board meeting. It needs kind of that board retreat and the facilitator who helps work us through that. And B, it's probably not something we can make a decision in committee. When we get to a board meeting, our committee can talk about sort of our thoughts and opinions on it, because that's the specialty of our committee. But I think that is, as I was listening to everything he was presenting, it's really clear that we would have to have goals and measurable actions over a period of time to kind of implement what he was proposing. Carol, I'm sorry, I see your hand. Why don't you go ahead?
I just wanted to say that part of the goal is to increase communication, so we fill that knowledge vacuum. But I think thinking bigger picture, I think about this as part of our vision for helping us connect better with our community and to turn around the perception of, misperceptions of our district. And I think those are bigger, broader, and could result in a lot of benefit in many different areas across the district. So yes, it's good. The communication piece is good, but I think if we're thinking bigger, perception is everything. And I think a good communication plan can help us really turn things around. So I just wanted to add that the communication piece and, keeping people abreast of what we're talking about, what we're working on. But I think big picture, it's about perception too. And I think right now, we're in need of we're in need of someone who can help us sort of turn things around and help to sort of build trust and allow, our community, taxpayers that fund our schools, to feel connected. And I know are we going to play for the feel like, but yes, it makes a big difference. So I would push and even say, this is not something that I think we need a few years from now. I think it's something we could benefit from now, like today.
Now.
Yeah.
100% now. I mean, you have towns, individual towns criticizing the district, and that's not the relationship that you want. You want to build trust. You want to build trust in the community, within the towns. You want the students to feel engaged. You want the parents to feel engaged. You want the teachers to feel engaged. And, you want to be a community is very proud of your district. And,
I'm going to push back a little bit on that, because I actually think we are. We hear from the same 6 people every single board meeting. We have a member of a town finance committee who writes op-eds. It's not necessarily what and it's to Mr. Davis's point, right? That the only time when you put out a survey, it is rare to get the people who are positive. You only tend to get the people who want to put through negatives. So I don't disagree, but I think couching it in sort of saying we have these terrible perceptions we have to correct, I think doesn't necessarily play into what our presenter said, which is trust that the general public can actually see sort of through to the truth. You may have to help them a little bit, and I think that's what we would want our PR. I'm not going to call him PR because I don't think that that's the right language, but
no,
our communications director to do.
Yeah.
But I think, but at the same time, I think, again, it would be under, like Carol was saying, a much bigger sort of vision of not that we have these, that we want to have a better relationship with the community, or we want to have a strong relationship with the community, not that we are trying to somehow sort of fix a perception that is held universally.
I can agree with that. I do think that we have problems with trust, and that aren't even about the school, that are about everyone being really worn out after a rocky several years. And people need to feel reconnected to things. I think it's a problem to imagine putting a communications director in the budget for next year at this point.
100%. I'm
wondering if we could afford some sort of consultants to help us think about what we need and what we can do.
Well, and that's why, I'm still going to continue to pursue ACEs, because it seems like it's a regional service that they could help to provide to at least get people off the ground, so to speak. We have we had the Amity in Action money, we had the videographer money. So we've had a very small piece of our budget. And when I say small, I'm talking like $10,000 to sort of have something related to communications. And so if that is simply funneled to a consultant to help us kind of think of a plan, that might be the best use of that. I think we have a couple of things that are still in the works. Again, the complete website rebuild is still sitting there. It probably won't be done until the start of next school year, because, I'm just reallocating another staff member to help do that work until we can get there, but it's there. So I think that is, I think looking at what funding we already have in the budget and how it can be diverted is a great strategy. I cannot imagine going forward at this point with A, adding anything to the budget, and B, putting in something that I believe will be seen as frivolous and self-serving as a communications director. And I say that in terms of, I believe that is how it would be received.
Well, I'm going to
agree 100%.
Well,
Donna, I agree with you that we need, like, a communications director would be great, but I think we're already facing adversity with the current budget request. I do agree that putting in a communications director into this year's budget is going to seem self-serving. My question is, because I have no idea how corporate works, how expensive is a communications director? I don't even know what that would entail as financially.
I think
Education, not corporate.
I think they're going to be probably comparable to the other directors we have in the district. So think director of pupil services, director of finance, director of facilities, director of technology.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, I think that the best strategy that we could try, and I think, again, this is where Amity board members can maybe reach out to your BOE board members, because I think it would look a lot less selfish and self-serving if this could be a shared service between our 4 districts.
Okay, well, you have communications, you can have public schools communication jobs, and in Connecticut, Stanford's hiring one. You can just look them up on any website, and you can pay someone, approximately, I would guess, around $66,000.
Yeah, I think they're much cheaper than the directors.
Oh, yeah, they're much cheaper. I mean, there are, if you look in DC, they get paid a healthy salary. They are managing large districts. This is not a one-person job in a large district. They have a staff, but you could start it out small. You could say it's a coordinator job, and you could have it be, something very small, and then have it be, you could say it's a part-time position. And that would be, so you would phase it in. You say
And
it's
again,
a part-time position.
all of these really
I think the other thing
detailed,
too is
granular ideas are exactly what comes through a strategic plan. And from the board's perspective, the strategic plan is just kind of having a sort of a finite deadline, where you say, okay, by this year, this is what we want to have. And then again, operationally, you let Terry and I figure out how we phase that in. But I do think it would help us. And again, this is where I could convince the superintendents in BOA that it's a great idea. But unless their boards are willing to fund a communications director, they're not going to go anywhere either. So this to me is where I think board member to board member, Amity to town is a great role that the board could play in advocacy. I've had certainly one member or one town really always pushing for shared services. This is a really good opportunity for a shared service, potentially. And if it doesn't work with BOE, then that's why I kind of threw it out to ACES, because it may also be a service I share with Cheshire, because Cheshire could probably use a part-time communications director. And if Amity can too, then maybe I'd look radically outside of just our immediate area. So that was kind of my other strategy in tossing it out at ACES, to see if anybody else would maybe be willing to look at going in on an idea with us, who's,
Right.
a little bit more need.
Right. That is actually a very good, it's a good solution. And to Carol's point, I don't think waiting is the idea. And I understand not putting the position in for this year, but I do see that, as I was starting to say, is that this could be, if you look into a shared service, or somebody who could just put together as a phased in, say, okay, well, this year we could work on the strategy. And then they could come back and say to the board, this is what we would need. This is what I would do. This is what I would need. This is the amount of hours that I would need. They'd put together something preliminary, and then come back and say, ideally, because I would spend X number on social, X number amount of time on social media. I would put together communications for hazard, for or emergency notification team. I would put together all these teams, and they would act as a point person. And this is, it's the same type of, it's not a 9-to-5 job. It would be something like, nights, weekends, whenever type of situation. And when you have someone who's young, who's eager, who may only have a few years experience, this may seem like a great opportunity for them to take on. Don't we have a marketing communications course?
Yes.
That had occurred to me, but throwing this to the high schoolers seems,
No, not the high
Yeah.
schooler. I'm saying who
And
teaches
you
it.
know, and I do worry with, and again, I mean, it's going to be the same thing we worry about whenever you hire somebody, right? Like you are balancing expertise and knowledge base with essentially what their salary demand is, and you kind of try to find that happy medium. I'm really aware of the time because I have got to get out of here at 6:30, and hopefully Dr. Turner does too, so we can head to
I
breakfast.
will, I'll be there.
I did want to talk about a couple other things. First, just really briefly, if I can share my screen, I will show you what we have for the draft right now for Mr. Davis's report. So the chair's report right now, his initial sort of focuses on the shortest summary of my budget presentation that I thought I could possibly write. Hopefully that kind of conveys the big, as Donna put it, 1-minute messages. Then we have a fairly hefty section on the 2023-24 school year prep, mostly in there to remind people of how much we work to transition 6th graders into 7th grade, 8th graders into 9th grade, what we do to help kids select their courses for 10th through 12th grade. That was all in the board report, but we just kind of put it all into one area. I really wanted to highlight the trades week that's going on right now. It's our first ever, and it is a great opportunity for students to engage in the skilled trade fields. It also, I think, speaks to the continued perception that we only support the highest achieving kids go on to the best colleges, or we support our really needy special ed students and we forget everybody in the middle, because I think this speaks exactly to some of the population in the middle. I included a brief thing about the Hurricane Ian photo restoration project because it's just really so amazing and I want to make sure our community knows about it. An opportunity where we partnered with the Yale School of Drama, which again, I think people think is normal, and it's just a wonderful chance our students had that it's just one of those things that happens only in a place like Amity. And some of our science research students and the recognition they've received, and then our student art show. So, a brief blurb on our keynote speakers so people can still refer back to that presentation. So kept it to 2 pages. I'll see what Mr. Davis does in the editing. All of that came from the superintendent's report. And again, I'm trying to make sure we're covering the arts, we're covering the academics, we're covering that highest academic achieving students in SRP, our middle ground kids in our trades week, and then some budget stuff at the very beginning. So I don't know if there's anything that you saw in the superintendent's report that you think I missed or that you would want to see highlighted.
Jen, how about something, I can't remember if there was something in there about sports.
So I have not done anything with sports yet in these because Ernie runs such a good website for athletics, and because the town papers will cover a basketball game. I mean, the town papers cover sporting events. It's, you know, it's one chunk of the paper that's always there. So I have not actively done that. I'm trying to sort of balance with the things that don't get covered.
So Jen, I have a question. How and where is this going to be communicated?
What is going to be communicated?
The newsletter.
The same way it's been every single month. We send it to our news media outlets. They decide whether or not they want to publish it.
And so you're treating it as a PR piece.
Yeah, Mr. Davis and I have been doing this since September.
Right.
Same process.
But who does it go to in the community?
So it goes onto our website, and then we send it to our list of, I think we have about 8 to 9 media outlets.
Okay, well, I have a suggestion that perhaps it should go to parents, and they need to, it's called permission-based marketing. You opt in if you want to get it, if you want to get a newsletter, but send it to the parents because this is the highlight of the board meeting. I would also suggest, if you're going to do this on a monthly basis after each board meeting, to embed links and to also include athletics, because even
So
though you may
the
think it's
links don't work because then the
Oh.
media outlets won't publish them. So if it
Got
remained
But-
only so in order to get it into the Woodbridge Town News, the Orange Town News, the Milford Orange Town
Right.
News, or whatever those are, they have to be standalone printable articles. So they can't necessarily have the links embedded in them.
right, so you
And
do
you
two-
could always say, I can create two, but again, I'm creating one and I barely have time to create one. I don't have time to create two.
And this is the argument that supports someone who does communication, because now you're only allowing one type of media. You're not expanding. So you need to have a multi-touch approach where you're getting everyone. So right now,
Well-
we are missing the community, we're missing the parents, because when you take a PR approach, it's if they pick it up. And that's not the approach you want. You want people to know everything that's going on. And I know we want to wrap up, but I would also include sports, because it may be redundant, but not everyone uses the same source of communication. These are the thoughts. You don't want to just try one way. You're like, oh, I saw it here, I saw it there, I saw it there. It's a multimedia type approach. You don't just take one shot at something.
Just for the record, actually, you can do exactly what you're doing. I thought Mr. Davis had been setting this up.
Okay.
So on the Board of Ed site, you can find the board chair newsletters, and there's a little button where you click follow, and you can enter your name and email address to have it sent to you on a monthly basis.
Oh, that's great.
Can we have it on the homepage? Because not everybody goes to the Board of Ed website unless you're looking to look up a policy. So if you put it on the homepage somewhere to say, just even if it's.
I don't know that our homepage, and again, I won't say no, but I don't know that it has enough space for it right now. You know, we function in terms of a template, and we just moved registration and all of that information to the very front, because that's the most important thing we have going right now. So I'm not sure I have the space for that particular newsletter item. At some point, we probably could. But
all right,
Can you
another
do those
idea.
pop-ups that
and
say,
again, you know, this is brand new, so I hope that the board can appreciate baby steps.
I think it's wonderful.
I'm thinking, like, now I'm getting agita of thinking how I keep up with all of the sports that are going on, and collecting.
Well, you don't. No. You go to Ernie. You go to Ernie.
But again, I can't ask an athletic director who works
Look out.
16 hours a day.
Wow, I can appreciate your enthusiasm. But
you know what? I am always in 100% when I'm in something. So Jen, what here's an idea. What if we use the same communication that we use, whether it's from the weekly updates from the principals, and also, what's the happenings, but also the Swift 2K, and say, hey, we have a board email, a board newsletter. If you're interested, you can sign up here and it will be pushed to you.
That I can do.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And then people, whoever wants it and are interested in getting those. And I think there are a lot more people interested in, like, what happened at the board meeting last night.
And I have to check, because it's possible that Mr. Davis did send that out. I just can't remember. I knew when we were creating it, that was the intent. So I will double check with him. But
can you add? Well, the news media outlets pick up, Jen. I'm sorry, not the links, but what if you put in for more information, contact, and then this way, no one's emailing the board about something that is in that newsletter. Whether if you want more information, like if you had the thrift store or the bees, I thought it was interesting that we're selling the honey to the staff, but a lot of information. Yeah, you didn't see that? I saw that somewhere. I can't remember where I saw it, but I did see it, that the honey is being sold to the staff.
So this is, hopefully you can see. So if, again, hang on, just go home.
Where is it? Let's see.
So under Board of Education on the homepage, you have the Board of Ed News.
I love the link.
When you click on that, you've got the archived newsletters from the entire year, the most recent one. And then if you click on the follow button, it does exactly, Donna, what you asked, which you enter it in and you get the newsletter sent to you.
Right. So you opt in. So
Yep.
here, it would be great if it was on the homepage to say, I don't think people know this is here.
So I don't know what you consider the homepage either,
AmityRegion5.org.
like this page,
Yeah.
You got it.
because most people don't go here either.
Where do
Most
they go?
people,
I feel like
they
I
go
feel
to this.
concerned that
I go
it's
there.
6:30
Yeah.
and Jen's gonna need to go, and we are solving very detailed things.
Yes.
I want to talk about what we're gonna do next, because I don't want the idea about open forums to fall by the wayside and not happen until halfway through next year.
So I think
it's
I would love to, at the next board meeting, as a result of our communications, share the idea of an open forum and then solicit potential topics from the board members. And I don't know, but I almost wish it wasn't a open forum around the budget, but we may not be, like, I would like it to be something more substantial, like about
What if-
school and kids, but we'll see. That may be what everybody strongly feels we have to have an open forum on. I think also we should probably give ourselves at least 2 months to plan it. So between advertising it to the community, coming up with the questions and coming up with the note taker, I think we need at least 2 months to put that together. So we're probably looking at May anyway.
What about asking the community what they would like to have open forums on? So not
So
just.
I think this was the danger that our presenter warned us about, is when you
Okay.
open it up to everything, you don't get to control the message. And that is still the role of communications. But I mean, we have a long list of topics that people have brought up. You've received as a board a lot of presentations that nobody ever sticks around for. They leave after public comment.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of potential opportunities. And again, you're tied into the community. I have every confidence that you could identify topics that you think our community would find valuable without opening it up to everybody and then not being able to control kind of the discussion in the forum that we have.
And we
And
can,
you might-
And again,
have
for our
this
first one, let's not like go wading off into the deep end on something that, like,
No,
we want something that we can have some success and get some communication out there.
right. You also want to make sure you have some guardrails set up. You want to keep everyone on topic, and you might, what happens is that you would probably find is that you may, let's talk about the budget, for example. If you talk about the budget, you will find other areas of interest that come up in the public forum that you could say, this would be great for our next one. If you see a theme
Yep.
developing. So you think that the first one you want to, and we could ask the board, but you're thinking around the budget that maybe that might be the.
I mean, if we can't plan it till May, it's too late anyway. So let's make it around something else.
how about like academic achievement, like that's
Yeah.
come up in public comment a ton. We could talk
Right.
about that and present a lot of the.
We can,
you know, the
yeah,
presentations
data,
we've
by
done.
then we'll have, it'll be the end of the year. We'll know where kids are going off to college. We'll have a lot of information that we could.
I
would
think
be
it's
cool.
very interesting that our test scores were better than a lot of the private schools that some of our students are leaving to go to. I mean, I didn't go to West Haven High School. I grew up in West Haven. I didn't go to West Haven High School. I went to Sacred Heart, right choice for me. And my mom, because, you know, she was old school Catholic. Right choice for me at the time. I currently teach, obviously, in a public school. I think the fact that our test scores are better than a lot of the private schools our students are going to would be really eye-opening, because I did not know that. You know, my kids go to Amity. I didn't know that our test scores are better. And I will tell you, just as an aside, that I'm so super proud. My daughter has a learning disability. She went to Amity Orange. She's going to Amity High School. She's a senior. She just got accepted the internship into the Yale program, and only a few students did. So I'm super proud of her.
Yes, congratulations.
That is wonderful.
Thank you. And she's a rower.
Congratulations.
Amity doesn't have rowing. So I'm so she drives every day to Litchfield. So I think Amity has done such a great job with her. You know, there's a lot of like these unsung hero students. They don't get all the big awards. I mean, she just broke 1,000 on her SATs, almost 1,100, but that was huge because her PSATs were like 800. There's a lot of good things that happen at Amity that kind of get brushed under the carpet with the middle of the road kids. To your point, she's not the student that's getting every award. She's not getting the superintendent's award. She's not getting, all these academic athletic scholar awards because her sport isn't, represented at Amity. But she got a nice little scholarship to Eastern Michigan. She got accepted into the Yale internship program. There's a lot of things that are really good that go unsung for the middle of the road kids. So I do think that, communications in that respect would be great.
What about Amy?
Okay, so I'm sorry, I really have to end the meeting. I gotta go.
Good luck tonight.
We've got to get up to Bethany. So I'm sorry, Dr.
Jen.
Turner. I can't mean to usurp you, but I've got to roll.
Roll. I will see you soon.
So
And I'm sure we will.
Hold the meeting open for a minute. I feel like Carol wanted to say something.
No, because I've got to
I don't
end the live stream and end the Zoom and shut my office down and everything like that.
Oh, you're the meeting host, Jen.
Yeah,
Are you? Oh,
I'm the meeting host and I'm running our live stream.
Okay.
oh, okay. Well, can we close the meeting and can you assign someone else as the
That I
co-host?
can do. So,
And then
but,
we can-
but then
you can-
you guys are in an illegal board meeting
No, we're closing. Oh, I see.
because it's
Got
not
it.
being
Right.
broadcast.
Right.
Okay,
So we're still talking. Okay.
Jen, I
All
have
right.
just for Amy, what if we did for the forums, we did a student story to open the forums, if we did a public forum, just an idea.
Maybe we can talk about it another night.
Talk about another night. You got it.
Have a great time at your
Have a-
meeting, Jen. I'm going
Yeah.
out.
Jenny,
Jenny, sorry to be
board-
late, everybody.
board chair privileges to end the meeting.
Carol, I look forward to.
I
hearing about
adjourn the
that.
meeting at 6:36. You'd better run.
Appreciate it. Bye, you
Drive
guys.
fast.